I quit my job as an accountant to flip cars. I'm Tammy Neon, and this is Rusted or Busted. And this is my adventure with a Peugeot 308 I bought for £400.
COVID saw the way we get deliveries change, but this is a new one on me.
They've all arrived. It's just like Christmas, except I had to pay for them, which is just like Christmas. Right, let's see how quick we can get it back together again.
Tammy stripped down and thoroughly inspected the entire braking system on an earlier episode. With a shocking find on the condition of the rear brakes, she worked out what was needed and has all new brakes for the Peugeot. The link has just appeared above, folks.
All done.
Well, hang on a minute, Tammy. We haven't seen you do the job.
So now you want to see how I did it. Well, it's time for lunch, but okay. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is refit the caliper, but nothing else, and wind back the handbrake with the one on the left.
You're in for a real treat today, folks. Whitworth has left Tammy instructions on what to do this morning. There could be a language barrier coming our way. He's a mechanic with 35 years experience, and Tammy only quit her job as an accountant recently to flip cars for a living.
Okay, I need more things.
This, with this bit on, goes in here. And then this piece goes in here. That. And then this locks onto that. Nope.
No, Tammy, you turn the handle. Oh Lord, won't you help me? My friends all bought Porsches.
With the handbrake now wound back, I've got to remove it all to fit the disc.
When winding back handbrakes on cars with electric park brakes, you need to follow a set procedure. It's different on every car, but on this Peugeot, it is simply a case of winding in the caliper. Tammy figured out that refitting the caliper was the best way to hold it. Or did YouTube come to her rescue?
If you're enjoying my automotive adventures, please click like and subscribe and leave a comment and I'll get back to you. The instructions say I have to copper grease everything.
A good covering of a high-temperature grease like copper grease will stop things from rusting solid in the future and helps to prevent brake squeal too. Let's get that disc fitted. Make sure you align the bolt holes. Then it's time to screw in the 2 retaining screws. They are just to hold the disc in place when you remove the wheel and prevent it moving out of alignment, which could make it real hard to fit a wheel at the side of a road after a puncture. So what's next on the list of jobs to do, Tammy?
Fit my replacement carriers.
When Tammy was inspecting all the braking components, she found that the rear caliper carrier was sticking and worn on one side. New ones were just not available, but a pair were found locally from a damaged car. These carriers do a very important job. Not only do they hold the caliper to the car, but they also allow it to move as the brake pads wear down. Make sure those bolts are tight, Tammy. And yes, when doing a bolt up that's facing you, it's still left is loose, right is tight. Even if you can't be sure which is right and which is left. Come on, Tammy, you can get it in. There's a well-known expression in a garage. Leave a comment if you know what it is.
Then I had to fit the pad springs. You see I brought Brembo stuff because it comes with all the new bolts and clips and things.
This kit has come with all new stainless steel slides that need to be clipped into the caliper carrier. 2 at the bottom going nice and then 2 at the top, followed by 2 more spring clips fitted to the pads that means they need a little persuasion to go into place.
Then on went the caliper.
With the caliper wound back, pads fitted and greased, a little dance has to be performed to get it over the new pads. Before bolting it to the carrier sliders and tightening securely.
A bit more grease.
Yes, folks, that's right, more grease. Giving the disc and the hub a good covering will prevent the alloy wheel from corroding to the steel parts.
That's the rear ones done. Now it's time for the fronts. Right. So now I have to push back the caliper piston with these grips.
Tammy has moved on to the front brakes now, and like the rears, you need to push back the caliper pistons. However, here's the catch, folks, when doing this brake fluid is forced back into the reservoir. On modern day cars with ABS pumps, this is an undesirable thing to do, and Tammy has missed the part on the instructions that tell her to release the nipple and allow the excess fluid to run out of the caliper into a catch can.
More grease.
That's a nice job you're doing, Tammy, making sure the grease covers all the hub. These discs are a heavy old chunk to be lugging around. This Peugeot has the optional larger brake discs on the front, and they are vented too, making them a stopping power to be reckoned with. Once they are lined up, 2 more retaining screws hold them firmly to the hub.
The carriers.
Just like our rear brakes, the fronts are a single piston design relying on a sliding carrier to allow the caliper to move in what is called a floating caliper design. With a little alignment, the bolts soon find their way home before being tightened to that setting of TTTTF.
Pads again.
In go our last pair of pads, complete with new guides and springs.
Before finally fitting the caliper.
What do you think, folks, small hands or big brakes? Well, I already gave you the answer if you were listening, and if anyone leaves a comment with the correct size, Tammy will be sure to thank you with a reply and a bit of love. Let's get these last 2 bolts in. That top one is a bit awkward as it's behind the brake hose, in yet another case of designer not understanding the needs of servicing.
A final grease.
Tammy's Breaking Bad journey is nearing its end. Are you going to tell her? Nah, me neither. It's grease, Tammy, not Dulux. A quick wipe will do.
And my last shiny wheel.
Fitting the last wheel brings this job back to, well, to the start of today's episode.
Time for lunch. So that was my morning.
Tammy has had a busy morning doing this brake job, but it's still not over. Once it's lowered from the ramp, she still has to do the final checks.
My brakes are all done, and the old ones are in a shocking state. I decided to fit Brembo brakes as they was the cheapest of the quality brands. The discs and pads came at a total of
£293.75.
The last part is just to reinitialise the handbrake and check the brake fluid. Now it's time for it to get its badge. It's booked in for an MOT this afternoon.